Okay, my friends, here it is. The Saturday live stream at the Garden Like a Viking headquarters on the ice planet Hoth. Yes, it is incredibly cold. I mean, it's getting incredibly cold. It's cold, but the wind chill, man. We have got incredible winds right now. Guys, you gotta let me know, is this microphone working? Is the microphone working? Can you hear me? ASMR. Because on the Monday Thrivecast on the other channel, I did a whole hour and a half series, which was great, about the book reading and all of that, and nobody told me that the microphone wasn't working. So I went back to view it, and it just sounds like I'm hollering through like I'm hollering down a tin hallway. Guys, that's unacceptable. You have to tell me the audio. That's why I'm always asking you, because all these electronics and stuff, you got it hooked up right, and you got the right thing on. Remember, just a handful of years ago, I was living straight up in the mountains with I didn't sign on to the internet for 4 years. And so learning all of this stuff again for me is still kind of, I only know what's necessary, okay? Yes, it does sound a bit tinny. See, we can't be having that. So you gotta let me know. Okay, wait, now see. Can you still hear me? Is it still sounding clear? Okay, I just whispered that. Did you hear that? Yeah, okay. See, this is not gonna be good. So this is not gonna be good. So, let's see here. How about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear the whisper? Ooh, yeah, okay, guys. If this isn't working, this is going to be a big issue for me, because I cannot do... Okay, now we're good. Okay, yes, you guys are great. Okay, here, I'm going to do one more whisper. Sorry, just stick with me. This is just how we got to do it. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me, the whisper? Okay, everyone's saying that's better. Okay, now I can speak with confidence, because guys, you can have subpar visual quality on this, but audio quality has to be on point. And I know most of you are just listening to this anyways. So, okay, thank you very much, my friends. So, let's see, who is here? I already got someone already made a donation. Let's see, we got to go way up here. Larry Gillis, $20. Californian dollars, or Canadian dollars. Yes, Canadian. Thank you very much, my friend. What is your, let's see, what is the question? Let's see. Typically, people put a question with the donation, but if not, that's not a problem. Larry says, hi from Canadian prairies, where it is -40 right now. It's a good time to relax inside and plan a gigantic garden. You are not kidding, my friend. It is a good time for that. So that's what we're going to do today. And yeah, is that Celsius or is that Fahrenheit? But when it gets that cold, it doesn't really matter all that much, does it? So let me take a sip of my bone broth, guys, because it's cold in here, because this is a 100-year-old house with original windows and doors. And it's like an old wooden ship. We've got huge wind gusts right now, and you can just hear all the windows rattling, and you can feel the breeze. The plants are swaying in the wind and stuff, and we're inside, all the windows and doors shut. I've had to take blankets and nail them up over the windows and stuff, because there's just cold air just pouring into the windows. But whatever, we will make do with whatever we got. So, hello, Graham, says Barry White. Oh, yeah. So, let me take that sip of bone broth. Guys, let me know, what is your plans for the upcoming gardening season? Is there anything that you're going to change? What are you going to change? What are you going to do? You got questions about new varieties? I think I'm going to start making videos again pretty soon. And the first one is going to be planning the 2024 food security garden, including my specific varieties, which have changed since last year. Oh man, I just cannot even say how good this is, guys. It's like nourishment in a cup. There's something primal about bone broth. It's the stem cell stuff that is in the bone marrow, the collagen peptides, all of the good stuff. Structural proteins for the skin, for the elasticity, for the organs, for the brain, for the production of testosterone. Bone broth, when it's made in this way, has it all. Okay? Not only is this thing loaded to the gills with bones and bone marrow from grass-fed pastured animals, but there's also huge, I got like a 6-gallon stock pot, 6 gallons, and I fill the whole thing with celery and carrots and like 5 whole huge onions, like 10 whole heads of garlic. Put it all in there, boil it for like 24 hours with thyme and rosemary and sage. All the stuff goes in there. And then you strain it out, and it is like a magical elixir. It's like magical. All right, so let's get to some of the questions, my friends. Yeah, so in case you don't know, next week's supposed to be cold, guys. Real cold. Starting tonight, the cold air is coming in. And it's going to be brutally cold, like actually cold. Like the high is in the single digits and the low is in the negative Fahrenheits. So that's going to be like old times. That's going to be like the winters that I remember, except we don't really have much snow yet. VA Green says, I got to find out if you can grow sweet potatoes using the trash bag method. Absolutely you can. You absolutely can. In fact, that was some of the best sweet potato harvests I ever had was in the bags. And it was actually just reclaimed potting soil from a friend that had a lot of potting soil that he didn't need. And so Shawnee Shave says, I want to grow peppers to smoke and dry. Don't forget to let me tell you about that. But the bag method for the sweet potatoes, it's some of the best that I had. And over the years, I've come to find out what other people have said, but I have to always find out for myself. Is that the bags, or is that sweet potatoes do not do well in high nutrient soil. And I found that out big time this year. Even though I kind of knew that, but I never experienced that like I did this year because I was using the Viking nutrients for you guys. I'm testing out and developing the Viking nutrients, the one-stop shop, the only stuff that you need if you want to go that route. So so I'm testing it out everywhere, and so I applied it a bit overzealous. I applied it because this is a formula that I developed over many seasons in Northern California, growing those kind of plants. High dollar, high intensity, very fast growing, and so they're very hungry. Those plants I was growing in Northern California, very hungry. So I was using similar dosages to this formula as what I used there, but obviously it was way too high for the sweet potatoes because the first red flag was once I added too much. I added way too much of the Viking nutrients, and so the first sign that I thought, was that I saw beautiful, immediate, luscious growth on the sweet potato vines. I mean, dinner plate size leaves. Leaves were like this big. The vines spilled over the tub and just grew and grew and grew. And it was just unbelievably healthy foliage on the sweet potatoes. I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen sweet potato vines grow like that. And so that was my first red flag. But then I was like, well, okay, maybe it's, I don't know yet. So then when I came to harvest, hundreds of tiny little sweet potatoes, the size of the thickness of your thumb, real long and skinny, classic over fertilization. And they had a lot of little root hairs on them and stuff, all the classic over fertilization. So very unfortunate. That's the first year that ever happened to me. And it is because of the over fertilization, because the granular stuff is very concentrated. It's not like adding a couple shovel loads of manure and stuff. That's different. So that being said, when I was doing the bag method for the sweet potatoes, I was just using, in some of the bags, I just use leaf mold composted down. and filled the bag with that. Another one, just some of that old used potting soil. Added maybe a shovel load of manure. And man, I had sweet potatoes this big around, just filled the whole bag. I would dump the bag upside down and it just sweet potatoes bursting out the whole bag. So make the sweet potatoes like a sort of poor nutrient rich, a poor nutrient soil. All right. Yes, Charles Coker says, found this video. YouTuber used a propane torch to melt and dry the ice on the steps and sidewalks. No more salt, sand to take care of the ice. Yes, and he's talking about the weed torch. Definitely, that works at first, but it doesn't prevent anything, so it's going to refreeze very fast. That's what because obviously I've done that before, but it refreezes very fast. The salt prevents it. So Gary Taproot says, this year I'm doing potatoes for the first time. I am also going to add more varieties of perennial herbs and native medicinal plants. Very good, very good. Make sure you get the calendulas, even though technically they're not perennials in this environment. They act like perennials. They self-seed and the seeds remain viable all winter. I planted calendulas in this plot like once 4 years ago, and now the whole garden is they just pop up all over the place. They're easy to take care of though, so you can just pull them right out. So they're not really like invasive because they're easy to remove if you don't want them there. But they just self-seed themselves. I've never had to plant them again. So those are wonderfully medicinal, and they're a good trap plant, and they're good. They're really good. Okay, Jason Hetty says, Nate, how many sweet potato slips per bag? Okay, well that can depend. If it's the contractor bags like the one that you saw in my potato video, and if you fill it, if you're filling it most of the way, that can be like 30 gallons of soil. So a good three or even 4 slips if it's full. If it's kind of not, then 2 to 3 slips. Yeah, but no more than 4 in that kind of kind of bag. So Shawnee Shave says, I want to grow more plants to make drinks from, like tea blends. Oh yeah. See, I've got some Greek mountain tea right here, which is ironwort, which if you're in a warm environment, this is ironwort. It will grow. This comes from Greece. This is the imported stuff, but ironwort, they make a great tea out of it. In Greece, we drank this all the time. I lived in Greece on 2 separate occasions, and we're always having this ironwort tea. Super beneficial, energizing without any caffeine type thing. Also, chamomile. Guys, grow the chamomile. Super easy to grow, especially if you plant it late fall. Ooh, yeah. Smells like apples and wild mountain honey and sunshine and summertime. Ooh, yes. And so we just take a pinch. That's all it needs. That's all you need is just a pinch for your tea. Like that's enough of the fresh chamomile, and the whole thing is bursting with that flavor and aroma. Contrary to popular understanding, though, chamomile is very hardy, down to like -20 degrees Fahrenheit. So it can be planted, so it can overwinter pretty easily. Yeah. Mohammed Demirdash says, watching you from Cairo, Egypt. Absolutely love your content. Keep up the great work. Nice, my friend. Glad you are here. That is one place I have not been. And Rachel, Successful Garden Design, says, drinking some now with some honey. Nice. Yes, honey. And guys, I get asked all the time about the honey thing. Okay, so I'm gonna give you my story and opinion on that. Ooh, yeah. I put some lavender in with that ironwort tea. Super delicious. Now, I get asked a lot, Nate, what about adding honey to hot tea? It destroys all the enzymes. Or does it destroy all the enzymes? And here's my response to that. uh, based upon my life experience. So when I was living in Greece, 2 separate times, I was teaching scuba diving there, and living in this village, small old village, Palaros. The village had been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, it looked like something right out of it. Buildings made of stone. Totally, just it's an unbelievable mixture of the old world and the new. It's incredible. But there was a resort that was like a half mile away, quarter mile away from the village. And that was really high dollar resort. So I was teaching scuba diving there and stuff. People would come from the UK mostly and have their little holiday there. But anyways, while I was there, there was a man there that was I developed a very close relationship with. And he was a very special man because he lived in a way that was very close to the earth. He was very in tune with the natural cycles of things. He knew the ancient wisdom from ancient Greece. You could just tell that he was as old as the hills, as old as the mountains that we were surrounded by, right on the coast of the Ionian Sea. And he knew everything about the land and everything about the animals, and he was really in tune with all of it. And he kept bees. He was known as Yorgo Meli, Honey George. And so that's what everyone knew him as. And he was the guy that kept the bees. He had like 100 hives, 50 to 100 beehives on the side of the mountain in Greece. And he would tend to each one of them. He spoke the language of the bees even. It was incredible. And he knew the habit patterns of the bees. He knew the temperament of every hive that he had. I would spend hours and hours with this guy, Honey George, and just watching and observing him, feeling what he was feeling, trying to get into the spirit of the land. It was incredible. And he made this Greek mountain tea, which they just called mountain tea. He made this mountain tea all the time, and we went and harvested it around. And so he said, this is very, very beneficial. I mean, good for the blood, good for the power. He would always say, good power, good power. And he had the ancient knowledge, okay? So stick with me. This is all going to make sense. So he kept the bees, and he had the most delicious honey I ever could experience ever. It was unlike anything else, of course. And because it was made with such love by someone that cares for the bees. And he, Honey George, would always take the honey and put it directly into his boiling hot tea. And he would always go on and on about the immense benefits of the honey in the tea and the combination of the two, and how this has been used since ancient times for thousands of years as an elixir to heal the body. And he would go on and on about the benefits of it. And so there's my answer to that. It was good enough for Honey George. Honey George was doing it, so therefore I'm doing it. Therefore, it has to be the right way. Therefore, it has to be ancient knowledge. Therefore, I don't have any problem at all doing exactly what Honey George was doing for 1,000 years and putting the honey into the piping hot tea. Doesn't matter whatsoever. So there is my answer on that. Long-winded, but now you get it, right? So that's why I always say, perfectly fine. Don't worry about destroying the benefits or the enzymes, because ancient Greek knowledge says that doesn't matter. B. Hendricks says, never question Honey George. That's right. You guys know when there's somebody that you know is perfected their craft and that really is an expert, a true master at their craft, then you can just accept what they say. You just know that it's the right way. So, Ranvig says, suggestions to use an overflow of wood ash, minus 13 Fahrenheit and getting lots of ash, putting it over the snow on top of the garden beds, just compost and leaves over the soil. How much ash is too much? Well, the thing about ash is that it is very water soluble. And so when you're sprinkling it over the snow and all of that, and it's going to get washed away. A lot of the nutrients are going to wash deeply into the soil or wherever it's draining to. And so you will not really have to worry about adding too much. But of course there's an upper limit. Now, I don't know exactly what that is. I've never reached it. But theoretically, you would have to be putting a lot, like truckloads of ash onto it. So you could also make it into a liquid, which will reduce it dramatically. So you can make like a barrel, even though if it's minus 13, you're not having no liquid fertilizers outside. So yeah, I would just keep sprinkling it over the beds. Uh, I can't really even give. I mean, like a 4x8 area, no more than like a 5-gallon bucket, per 4x8 bed. I mean, that would be quite a bit, even if it does wash out. But yeah, I mean, in the old school days, when I've read the old almanacs and the farmers' almanacs from the 1800s and stuff, they were going on and on about wood ash. I mean, that was like their number one. You always add the wood ash to the beds where you're going to grow your cabbages and all this kind of stuff. And so that's where I got a lot of that knowledge over the years of how to use the wood ash and what ratios and all of this. Yeah, look to nature. Good point. Says, think how much is left after a forest fire. That's how much nature wants. Definitely, guys. Because it is... The ash is, all the nitrogen, basically, and most of the carbon and stuff in the form of CO2 and whatnot is evaporated in the combustion process. But the minerals remain. Lots of minerals, because they're not affected by fire in the same way. And so it would be hard to overdo the wood ash. So 3 Puff Pass says, hey, bud. Hey, bud. I'm in zone 7A. Is it still too late to put down some manure for spring? I have only half my beds done. No, you can still do it, definitely. What kind of manure? I would say, horse or cow, definitely. Chicken manure, yes, be sparingly with it, because it's not going to be but a couple months and we'll be planting stuff already, guys. It's already the new year. It's already January. So, yeah, you will, putting shred up leaves on top of the manure. Yes, that's the way to do it. Put the manure directly on top of the soil and then shredded leaves on top of that. That's going to mat down, insulate the soil, get the microorganisms really happy. Let's see. Val says, hey, Nate, when should I plant onions in the trays? Garlic, ? Garlic? Well, as you know, we should have already planted the garlic. But if you want spring garlic, it will still work. So you will plant that really anytime that the soil is workable. I mean, you can still plant garlic, but here the soil is going to freeze now, finally. But yes, it's not going to be that big of a deal because garlic is very, very cold hardy. So go ahead and plant it anytime. Yeah. Just make sure that it gets down there far enough where it's not going to freeze, because freezing and thawing of the ground will heave the garlic up above the ground and plop it on top of the ground. I've had that happen in the past. If you don't insulate it enough, then you'll go out there and your garlics are just laying on top of the soil in the spring, dead. So, yeah. Cecily Cronin says, I can't get enough of ash and biochar. Our burning season is very short now. Our soils are millions of years old and are mineral deficient. Where are you at? Lisa T, $5. Thank you very much, my friend. Says, happy windy winter, Nate. Grateful for a cozy home with air and nourishing house plants. Yes. Grateful for infinite spirit and wisdom. Yes. Yes, thank you, Lisa. And she is talking about the things that we discuss and the practices that we do on my other channel, Thrive Like a Viking. So, yes, thank you, my friend. Cecily says, Western Australia. Okay, yes. Okay, Julie Pooley says, I'm setting up my winter sowing containers. First time. Well, good. So I made a video on winter sowing, yes, but yeah, there's tons of videos on the internet about winter sowing. But the thing that you want to be aware of is that it's ideal for things like flowers, perennial flowers, wild flowers, anything that would be native. Your cold hardy stuff, it's good. It's good, yes. It will give you a couple of weeks of start. It will give you a couple weeks of head start over just planting them in the ground. Yes, but if you don't have an indoor setup, then it's ideal. Now, it's not ideal for things like tomatoes and peppers. The heat-loving stuff is not really ideal for that because you want them to be grown up more. Tomatoes especially, you can have them grown up quite a bit because then we just bury them, in the ground. But then, yeah, the question. So, okay, Val says, oops, meant ginger. Okay, good. Then, so you start the onions. I'm going to start my onions here in about 2 weeks. Pretty much the 1st of February, give or take. I mean, you could even start them now. Let's see, all of February, all of March. Yeah, because you can give them a good 10 weeks. So go ahead and start them now, really, if you've got the setup, because onions are one of the things that it's not like other things where if you start it up too early, it's going to suffer. Onions can stay, so long as you've got a good indoor seed starting setup, you've watched my masterclass and all that. If you've got a good setup, then the onions can just keep growing and growing because they are one of the few things that we will trim during their indoor season. So we will keep them, watch all the videos I've made on the topic, and we will let them get to about 8 inches long and then trim them down to 5 inches. And then let them grow another couple inches, trim them down to about 5 inches. All right? 1 second. Okay. I had to grab my wool socks because it's chilly. Even though the heat's running fine and everything, it's when you've got like 0 R factor windows, it's just so unbelievably drafty in here. That's why I'm wearing my drafty outfit. So, Moon Dust says, are sweet Spanish onions a long day variety? Probably not. Most of the sweet Spanish, Texas Grande, all of those kind, most of them are short day. But it will say right on the package. And at this point, if you're in the northern hemisphere, then you're only growing long day onions. Short day onions won't work. You'll just get a bunch of little ping pong ball size onions. And so Look to Nature says, yes, I could use a ginger tutorial, Viking style. Ooh, yes. Now I made one about exactly 1 year ago. So even though I could make another one, I'm going to let that go for 1 more year. I'll make another one next year at this time. Because that's the thing. I don't want to just keep making the same videos. Even though they're not the same because a new knowledge was acquired and stuff. Like this year I really learned that ginger thrives better in partial shade than it did in full sun. When it was directly up against the north-south running wooden fence, it did way better than the stuff that was in full sun next to the peppers. And it loves super rich soil. And that is what I gave it. Super rich soil. Look to Nature says, Nate, which potatoes did you find stores the best? Yukon Golds and German Butterballs. Also, Kennebecks. Those are the best for storage, in my experience. Some of the red potatoes can, but most of the red potatoes don't store that well. And so I will put that all out in the video that I will discuss that in the video I'm going to release here in a couple weeks, maybe a week or so, about what varieties I will be using. Let's see. Jerry Bates says, how much salt for the stock tank to keep it slushy? He's talking about the ice bathing because he's part of the tribe on the Thrive Like a Viking clan. So he's ice bathing. He's got his water trough, and we're doing the ice bathing all the time. Ice bathing is going to be off the chain here in the next couple weeks, guys, because it's going to be crazy. It's just going to be crazy. When it's negative, we got the wood-fired sauna tent is going to be toasty. We're getting that sauna tent up to 220, 240 Fahrenheit. It is roasting hot in there like a sweat lodge. We go in there. I host classes where people come over and I take them through the whole process. We do the breathing, then we go out into the sauna, get roasting hot, and then go into the ice bath for 2 minutes, and then back to the sauna, back to the ice bath. And by the end, everyone's just totally blissed out, just vibrating. It's so wonderful. Yeah. It makes it so that I don't even notice the cold anymore. I don't even notice winter or the cold or anything. And it really pulls at my Viking roots. But anyways, Jerry, so let's see. I've got a 150-gallon stock tank, and I'll probably end up putting 4 cups of sea salt. 4 cups of sea salt. You could even put more. Now, it's going to get so brutally cold, you might have to use one of those stock tank heaters, and put it on a timer to come on for like 3 hours in the middle of the night. And that'll keep it slushy. So something like that. But the ice, the 4 cups, 5 cups even, will be adequate. Eden 3D, thank you for telling me about that. Says Ms. P. Okay, Ms. P, $5. Thank you very much, my friend. Says, I just got a wood stove. Lots of ash now. Any plants that should not be supplied ash? According to the internet, there's all kinds of plants that shouldn't be supplied ash. According to the mockingbird sort of popular gardening culture, people that just watch videos and then make videos parroting the same information and stuff. Potatoes, you should never add ash to potatoes. Well, okay, why? Because. Okay, why? Explain to me. And they can't, of course, because most people are just parroting all of that stuff. So I had to find out for myself. I used a copious amount of wood ash in the potatoes, and they turned out magnificent. And so there's literally nothing that I've experienced that does not benefit from wood ash. Now, people want to talk about, I can't say for certain about blueberries because I don't have experience with blueberries. So I can't say. I know that they're finicky, but I also know that they can adjust. If they're given everything that they need, all plants will adjust the pH of the soil around the rhizosphere to what they need. So people are saying, blueberries want this type of soil. Well, okay. But for the most part, plants will adjust themselves. So, and remember, it doesn't matter what the soil pH is. If you're concerned about wood ash and soil pH, it doesn't matter what the soil pH is over here, 5 feet away from the plants, or even 3 inches from the plant roots. It only matters what it is at that at the interface, where the fungi and stuff like that is. That's what matters. And the plant can manipulate that to what it needs itself for the most part. So I always say simplify it. Don't worry about the soil pH. The wood ash is good for everything. And that's what the old almanacs that I've read. I got all kinds of old books and old magazines. I love that kind of knowledge over the years, because that was just from a different time, And so and they're always talking about wood ash. Well, add it to your cabbages. It makes them green. Add it to your just everything. Your potatoes. They're talking about dig a big trench and have a fire inside the trench. Bunch of sticks and all kinds of stuff. Have the fire inside the trench. Once it's nice and died down, a couple days later, put your potatoes into the trench, cover it back up. And that's a method. And they're talking about you're going to have beautiful, delicious potatoes. And so based upon popular current mockingbird society of the internet, though, gardening community, that would be blasphemous because you can't add wood ash to potatoes. but we know that that's not true. So there you go. Jenny Grubb, good to see you here, my friend. Get that snow shoveled. Moon Dust, I'm hoping to grow some potatoes this year in the 50-gallon grow bag. Not a problem. You definitely can do that. Yeah, VA Green says, wood ash is great for rooting, so why would it hurt potatoes? There's a thing, it gives them scab, or it changes the pH of the soil and all that stuff, but it's just kind of hearsay, It's just not really all that true. It's kind of like the electroculture thing, people just hearing other people talk about it, and so then they parrot the information. But I am so happy the electroculture nonsense has gone by the wayside. So I don't even want to say it to even give any life into it, So now the ginger, okay, to answer your thing, Val, the ginger, you will want to watch the video that I made, but you will want to start that. See, the first 3 years I grew the ginger, I had to start it like now because it took a month, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks even before it even sprouted. But that's because my conditions were not exactly right for ginger. Ginger loves the heat. So last year, I put it on a heat mat without a thermostat. And so without a thermostat, a heat mat will get to like 95 or 100 degrees. It'll cook most plants. So that's why you got to use a thermostat. But the ginger didn't mind. And it sprouted in like 3 weeks, that ginger did. And it grew by the time, and you remember if you watched some of the lives from last year at this time, my ginger was like this tall. It was off the screen. It was like 3 feet tall, and I was like, and it's just in a tiny little tomato tray, flat 10 by 20 tray, and so I was like, well, I obviously don't need to start it so early because that stuff that was 3 feet tall, when I put it outside in the full sun, it just roasted and it killed it all. I know, it was terrible. But then the stuff that I put in the partial shade thrived. It thrived. Some of the leaves got burnt, but it thrived. And I got huge, nice, big, fat chunks of ginger. It was so delicious. I was eating that stuff. Now, it only lasts about a month in the fridge, but I used it for kimchi and fermented ginger, pickled ginger. I made it for the ginger, turmeric, lemon, honey. That was all stuff I grew. Super good. And the stuff that we grow ourselves, guys, remember, it is much more soft and tender and palatable and not so fibrous when we're trying to eat it. Okay? Big Wheel Dog, no. It says electroculture is only gone till it warms up in North America, I'm afraid. Hopefully I'm wrong. Well, I think enough people tried it. I'm still getting comments about it, though, that people, well, it's because you did it wrong. See, you wound them counterclockwise. You're making a sky motor, so you got to have it exactly at 8 ohm, so it's got to be exactly blah, blah, blah. No, that's not how it works, guys. Get your head out of the clouds like that. Stop watching the movies and stuff and just get back to the earth, to reality. The plant is already the most perfect antenna that could ever be created. Yes, it is harnessing atmospheric energy. Yes, that's true. But the plant's already doing that. You can't mine some copper, which is a super destructive, environmentally destructive process. Look up copper mining, okay? It's unbelievable. And so you can't just add some copper and even if you're pumping current into it, even that kind of stuff, that's not the answer. Even if there is some kind of effect to it, if you're actually pumping current into it, which I kind of do believe there is some kind of effect to it when you're actually electrifying it. But that's not the answer, okay? Not even remotely close. That doesn't need to be the answer because nature's already perfected it for millions of years. And so you can't perfect what is already perfected by adding some little copper antennas and stuff. It just doesn't work that way. So, but people just want a pill. They just want a quick fix. Well, I don't got to learn about the soil food web. I don't got to learn about manures and all that fertilizers, all that stuff. All I got to do is just plop this antenna there and look, electroculture, massive plants and all this. No, it's marketing. Sorry, guys. Nick the Gardener, good to see you here, my friend. So says, hi, Nate. Is it worth adding elemental sulfur to soil now? Acid rain isn't as bad. Yes, it can be, definitely, if you think that there is a deficiency of the sulfur. If you've made the JDOM liquid sulfur, then that's how you want to apply it. That's how you want to apply it. But yeah, you can sprinkle the elemental sulfur in there. Definitely. That will help, especially your alliums. So I'm sure you're talking about alliums. So garlic and onions, they thrive with sulfur because what makes the onion and the garlic, but especially onions, what makes them pungent, that eye-watering, is the sulfuric compounds. And that is also what makes them last throughout the winter. I got so many onions still rock hard, just as rock solid and beautiful as the day I harvested them like 5 months ago. So yeah, these are things that I will talk about in the next video that I make in a couple weeks about planting the garden, because I found this past year a very good rotation is once your onions come out to put the Yukon Gold potatoes in there. Yeah. And that is, and that really is I found that to be good because the onions help to deter the pests that potatoes like to, typically will attract. So Nick says, what about potatoes? Yes, definitely you can add the elemental sulfur to the potatoes. You want to be careful with it though. A little goes a long way. A little goes a long way. Yeah, Tony B says, gotta watch out for that marketing hype. It's all over the place now. Absolutely, guys. So many things are marketing. So much is all about marketing. Oops. Cecily Cronin says, lots of KNF and JDOM never measure pH. Nature takes care of it. Absolutely. And maybe I have said this before. Maybe I've said, I know I've said this to you guys before, but when I was the head grower, when I was growing in Northern California, high stakes gardening, high value plants on a large scale, 5 massive greenhouses right in a row. And so when I was growing there, and then also the indoor stuff we were doing in the winter season, the first handful of years, it was all about pH. I was just testing pH, and pH was so important. And I was monitoring all the pH and stuff like that. And I would spend hours pHing down these 1,000-gallon tanks of nutrients and stuff with my little meter. And then, a little too low. I want to get that up to a 6.2. I wanted everything to be right at 6.2 pH because that's exactly the sweet spot that everything grew the best. And so I would put in the phosphoric acid and all kinds of stuff. And it was a huge show. It was a huge spectacle trying to pH everything. And I was testing the soil pH and all that stuff. But then over the years of doing it, I came to the understanding that all of that is unnecessary. If you're growing in medium, if you're growing in soil, if hydroponics is totally different, you have to monitor the pH. But in soil, the plant can regulate itself. And it all has to do with the microorganisms. So once I learned how to switch away from growing with all the chemicals, the general hydroponics and all of that chelated stuff, all of that stuff, once I learned the difference, you can't be mixing organic stuff, biologicals, with the chemicals. You don't mix the two ever because they operate by different means. And so once I learned all of this and I switched the beds over and I switched everything over the next season to all biologicals, then it was all about getting the maximum amount of microorganisms in the soil. And then those microorganisms would interact with the plant to regulate its pH. And so from that point on, I never again pH'd anything. I never even tested the pH. And the stuff improved every year. It was some of the best in the area. And in Northern California, that's good. So, and then it translates to all plants. Okay. And so long as there's the microorganisms. So, Oh yeah, everybody's going high value plants, right? Scott Miller, yes, high value. Look to Nature said those are Japanese maples, right? Oh yeah, tomatoes as well, and tomatoes, yeah. Um, but this was before it was all like mainstream. Now it's just all mainstream and stuff. You know, back then we had to be real clandestine with all of it. Um, Exactly. Elusive 323 said it kills the soil microorganisms if you put those chems in. Exactly. So that's why, you know, so many people would be having issues with their soils and stuff because they would be doing, they thought they would be doing chems and then also trying to add compost tea and biologics and stuff. And they defeat each other. They work by totally different mechanisms. The chemicals starve out the microorganisms. The whole soil food web, it just bypasses all of that and goes right to the plant. And so you kill the soil and make the plant dependent on the chemicals. Whereas the biologics will provide the same thing, except much better for the plants through the natural soil food web. Yeah, which enriches the soil. Phoenix, I did very well with dirt and Gen Hydro. Absolutely, absolutely you can. And but here's the thing: when you're using soil and things like Gen Hydro, which general hydroponics, which I did, the micro bloom, veg, all that kind of stuff, the soil becomes essentially growing medium, and there's a big difference. That cannot self-perpetuate, and that doesn't produce an organic product. So yes, it totally works, but it's a whole different mechanism. So the soil is not really soil like we want to. Soil is sand, silt, and clay with microorganisms. All right. So it's really a soilless growing medium is what it becomes because it's peat moss based stuff anyways. So yeah. Well, right. Yeah. VA Green says 4 greenhouses. It was 5. It's not exactly clandestine. Well, that's true. Yeah. But it was behind what was called the redwood curtain. It's just so far out there that there was just nobody. You know, there was just nobody, and everybody was doing the same thing. So it was such so hard to get to it. You know, there was only the one main vein of the 101, and then from there just miles and miles and miles of little mountain alleyway gravel roads. Look to Nature says, wish we had Nate's videos of those NorCal plants or at least pruning tutorial. Oh man, I would love to if I was in a state where it allowed for it. But you know, my relationship with that plant is over. You know, it served its purpose in my life. But I will be getting into that before too long on the Travel Like a Viking channel. I will be showing pictures of it. There will be some pictures that'll kind of blow your mind. Mick, $20. Thank you very much, my friend. I know it's cold where you're at. There in Colorado, right? You're about 5 miles high. Is there a specific fan you recommend for the indoor microgreen seedling growing setup? There is not, actually. I can't recommend a specific fan. I would say an oscillator. Just an oscillator is what you want, depending. Now, I saw your setup is pretty nice. You got the shelf, you got the heat mat, you got the lights set up, right? So what you could do with that would be, because you've got like 2 shelves right next to each other, right? And then you got the lights hanging there. So I would, and that's like up against the wall or something, or maybe you have plastic around it. I saw you put a picture in the Discord, right? In the Discord chat, I think is where I saw it. And so what you would do is then put an oscillating fan here and have it blowing like that. Blowing like that. You could also have, depending on how big the operation is, you know, you could have the fan going like that, but then you could also have like a floor fan pointed up, circulating the whole room. Or you could just have the floor fan pointing up, circulating from the whole room. There just needs to be the airflow. There doesn't have to be air directly on it, you know. So yeah. Cecily says, all biologicals here. Yeah, absolutely. That's the way to do it. Because, and actually it's the product, and I learned so much from those years in Northern California. The product is then, when you grow it with the Gen Hydro and the chemicals and all that stuff, you then get a product that is full of chemicals because the plant is an expression of the soil. And so whatever is happening in the soil is what happens in the plant. It's an expression of it. So the plant consumes those chemicals, and then it alters the actual structural makeup of the plant, the essence of the plant. And with something like those plants that we were growing, you could actually feel psychoactively, you could feel the difference, major difference between chemically grown stuff and the all biological organic stuff. Major difference. And you could feel that the one was just harsh, more confusing, more just, whereas the other one was just mellow, like medicine, So that's where I began to understand all of this stuff, and the same is true with food as well. Tomatoes grown hydroponically, and everybody wants to get all up on hydroponics because it's good because it's like fast and it's new technology and stuff like that, and it's all. But it will never produce as high quality as soil, biologically active soil. I don't care what the plant is. It will never produce the same kind of quality or nutrient density or flavor. It's all the same thing. Shooting the Soil says, Nate, full spectrum cannabinoid balm rub does wonders for those 40s aches and pains. Might find a new relationship. That's funny. Yeah, it's those 40s aches and pains. No, I hear you, but I refuse to. I actually don't have any aches and pains, which is fantastic. I used to, but since all the practices the past handful of years, and the kettlebells, and the cold training, and the sauna, and the eating, and the mind, spiritual meditation, all that stuff, there are no aches and pains. So that's what's wonderful. Wendy says, do you usually answer questions from people other than the regulars? I have been a subscriber for a year now. What do you mean? What do you mean? Do you have a question? Is that what you're saying? Please ask it. If Wendy Holtzinger has a question, please ask it. You got to understand, though, from my standpoint, the questions are just choo, 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 choo. And then I try to go to choo, 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 choo. And so it's like I read what I can. See, so like right above your question was Big Will Dog, Garden Like Aviking. Hey, Nate, question. I have tomatoes still growing inside from last summer. Been cutting back and planting suckers. Think they'll be viable for the summer? They will be, yes. Yeah, that's one way to do it. I haven't done it that way, but I don't see why it wouldn't work that way. If you just kept pruning them and rerooting them, probably, yeah. That's not going to make a nice, vigorous, healthy transplant, though. That's not going to make a nice, healthy transplant. Nathaniel Graham says, hydroponics new technology. Wasn't there hanging hydro gardens in Babylon? Well, I'm not sure. I wasn't there. And so I don't know for sure, but that would still be a different kind of hydro than I'm talking about. We're talking about like modern hydro. So there's many different forms of hydro. There can be Kratky type hydro, where it's more like a wicking thing. That can be one way, but the hydro, yeah, for the most part, no, hydro's not. You need the soil food web. Okay, so Wendy is asking about yerba mate grown in North America. Let's see. Yerba mate grown in North America. I have no knowledge of that. If anybody does, let me know, because I love yerba mate and I drink it all the time. Well, during the summertime, not so much in the wintertime, but I actually don't have a lot of experience with that because, based upon my understanding, it is a tree in the tropical regions. And so it requires a lot more than just like vegetable gardening and stuff. So Wendy says, yes, I wasn't sure you could see me. Some individuals had several responses. Yeah, don't take it personal, my friend. It's just the nature of the beast here. It's the nature of the game. I just grab the ones I can, and, some people say a lot more. as well. But yes. So I'm sorry, I don't have any knowledge with yerba mate. Growing it, I do love it though. And if you check out my Amazon storefront, then you will see that the kind that I like to get. The best value for the money that I have found. And wonderful taste. Signal Loss says, I've cloned tomatoes and kept going during the winter and planted the plants in the garden next year. Worked pretty well, but not doing it again because it was way more work. Yeah, okay, so there's someone's firsthand experience. And that seems about like that makes sense to me. It would just be a lot of work. And if suddenly, all of a sudden, you could never get another tomato plant seed, then yes, by all means, keep it alive. But if you can just start seeds, then that's what you want. That's what you want, really. So, Tirza, haven't seen you in a while, I don't think, my friend. Says, Yupon Holly is the American cousin, comparable substitute for yerba mate. Is that with the same sort of energetic boost? Or what? Flirting with Sewing says, do you have a substitute recommendation for Berkey filters? Well, if you go to my Amazon, actually just the links in the description of this video. If you go down into the description of this video towards the bottom, you will see I have a link to the Berkey filter. But then I have like a budget one, which is the Berkey one is like $400 or $500. A comparable one from Water Drop, which is also a fantastic company and brand, is like $130, something like that, for the same kind of thing. But also, I have made my own out of getting just the ceramic, silver impregnated ceramic filters and 2 5-gallon buckets. Now that cost about $60, and it works pretty good. Let me know if you guys want to see a video on that. I could probably do that this year. It works pretty good. So, yeah, Queen RB says, buying seeds also helps the organic seed companies stay in season. That's true, definitely. That's definitely true, yeah. JB says, should you worry about chemicals in store-bought straw when used as mulch? You know, not really. Straw is different than hay. So straw, they typically aren't spraying with the broadleaf herbicides based upon my understanding of it. And I have farmers in the family and stuff. And so typically they do not have to spray the straw like that. Because the reason that they spray the Grazon, yeah, they spray glyphosate on straw, but that has a very short half-life actually as far as its destructive capabilities in the garden. Because you can actually spray, I know it's bizarre, you can actually spray Roundup, glyphosate, directly in the garden, and then a couple weeks later plant vegetables there. I know, it's not good, but they will grow and be just fine. But the broadleaf herbicide, though, is persistent, very persistent. So this is like 2,4-D and stuff like this. And they will put that on hay mostly, and actually mostly equestrian hay, because horses are a lot more picky about their hay than cows. And so they will typically put it on hay meant for horses. And so that keeps anything but the specific grasses that they want from growing. So that's what you really got to look out for, is hay and then horse manure. Also cow manure to a degree, definitely. But straw, typically you don't have to worry about. Christopher Mennel says, hi Nate, Cape Town, South Africa. Just had our festive summer season. Can I throw flat beer on my garden or must I dilute it? If there's no plants in the ground, you can throw it on. Well, you probably got plants in the ground, though, if it's your midsummer. I don't have enough experience with putting beer on the garden. I've never had it in that kind of quantity where I would put it onto the garden. So I would say dilute it and put it on the compost pile, or just put it on the compost pile. That's what I would say. I don't know how it would help the plants, or if you would really want any types of the alcohols into the soil, because our ancestors, that is why you hear so much of mead and wine and beer drinking in the past, was because it disinfected the water. It's the main reason. I learned this in Greece, and when I was living there with Honey George and stuff. And the wine there is totally different than the wine we get like here. The wine there is like really pressed grapes and way more watered down than our wine. Like you can just drink many cups of their type of wine, and it's nothing like one glass of Burgundy or some kind of French wine or California wine. Totally different. And this is how I began to learn that back in the day, it was a safe way to drink the water. And so the mead and the beer and the wine was diluted to the maximum possibility. So they weren't just drunks all day. So there's no way. No. So, okay, Real Coles says, show us how to further proceed the lab cheese, please. Okay, the reason I haven't done that is because I used to do it, but it requires heating the cheese. It requires melting the cheese. And so I come to the realization that kills the microorganisms. I mean, obviously, it makes it biologically inactive. So we basically just melt it and add a bunch of salt. That's what we've done. And then it hardens up into this other kind of substance. It's another kind of cheese. Now, you can also get specific enzymes if you want, and you can add them at that point. You can order specific cheddar enzymes, specific types of enzymes, and add it to the cheese then. But it's not going to have that massive biological impact on the digestive system. So that's why that's why I haven't made that video. So just keep eating the good, fresh farmer's cheese, because that's what's healing the gut microbiome. That's what's good for the system. Just me, $20. Thank you, my friend. Says, thank you for sharing your knowledge. Yes, you're very welcome. And he has garlic now in Tennessee. He has garlic that is like a foot tall. I mean, he has really developed garlic because we planted it a little bit too early, I think. But it was just what had to happen. But so now that we're going to get that cold, and even down in Chattanooga, he's going to be getting single digits. So he needs to cover it loosely with straw. You need to cover it loosely with straw to keep it from heaving when the ground is freezing, and to keep it from, you just need to insulate it all. So guys, check your garlic out. Okay, garlic's extraordinarily hardy, but if the mulch is too low and it's exposed, then you might be having issues when it's -6 and windy outside and stuff. Yeah. Ooh, Ms. P says, I got straw bales of hay from Lowe's and let them. Wait, straw bales of hay? That is an oxymoron. So is it straw or is it hay? But Ms. P says, I got straw bales of hay from Lowe's and let them sit in the sun and rain for a couple of weeks before using. My strawberries are fine. Then she quotes, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Yes, yes. And this is a wonderful saying and something we talk about on the Thrive Like a Viking channel. Definitely. What's up, Ben T? Big Wheel Dog says, also beer on sailing vessels back in the day were at or below 2% total alcohol in barrels of water or beer. Provided nutrients and hydration and kept them free from pathogens. Yes, exactly. Sandy says, straw or hay? Well, it's very different. Straw is looks like the straws. It's all usually typically golden yellow. And okay, Ms. P says straw. Okay. Yeah, you don't have to worry about straw for the most part because people aren't spraying that with persistent herbicides because nothing is grazing on it. So the reason it's called graze on is because farmers will spray it onto their crops and then they can immediately let the animals graze on the pasture. and it's not going to have any broadleaf weeds and thistles and all kinds of gnarly stuff. So it's a complex issue, guys, because it is difficult. If you've ever tried to organically farm anything, you know it is unbelievably difficult. It can be. I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of energy input. And back in the day, this was all human input. And it still is in many parts of the country or world that I've been to. But there's just so many people involved with it, pulling weeds and keeping everything how it's supposed to be. But in American farming, Western type farming, there's hardly, comparatively, no, it's like a skeleton crew, almost no people. And it's just massive machinery on huge acreage. And so the only way to deal with that kind of stuff is these gnarly chemicals with that system. Moondust says, "Kay, I'm going to call it for now and look back later." All right, my friend. So, let's see here. Flirting with sewing, $10. Thank you very much, my friend. Now, why can I not see? Oh, I cannot see that question. It's because it's covered by a thing that says, "Let's celebrate their first super" on a live stream. All I see is a little word that says "growing setup?" ? Someone, what is flirting with sewing? What is your question? I will answer it for sure. Thank you for the tip. So guys, number of things here, okay? One is that we want to be sprouting. We want to be sprouting, okay? These are alfalfa seeds, and alfalfa is some of the most nourishing sprouts that you can get, okay? You can get about 2 flushes per week of the sprouts. 2 tablespoons into here, soak for 12 hours, and then rinse every 12 hours. And then I like to eat them at about this stage. I'll probably eat them tonight or maybe tomorrow or even the next day. If you need them to slow down, put them in the fridge. But guys, these, I've had a lot of different types of lids, and these are actually really good. And so far, they claim that when you get these, they claim that they will not rust, which I've never experienced with metal before. But these are 316 stainless steel. I guess that is a very rust-proof kind, obviously, because they're not rusting after a couple of years of using them. So they are in my Amazon storefront. I highly recommend these. Definitely, they work really well. Oh, okay, flirting with sewing says, "You have already answered my question." Okay, great. So thank you. Demari Hoover says, "In Tennessee, should cover garlic with a frost cloth?" No. Nope, there's no need to cover garlic with a frost cloth. Garlic is the hardiest thing in your garden, period. But it has to have that layer of mulch because the clove cannot get exposed to the elements. And that's what happens most of the time, is that when the ground will freeze a little bit and then thaw, freeze and thaw. It expands and contracts, and it will heave that garlic clove up like nothing, and then it will die. So you can prevent that if you put the mulch on top, okay? Ooh, Kim Williams says, "Cooking food to take on a wild boar hunt in the morning." That sounds awesome. Let us know how that goes. Leave it in the Discord chat for us. That would be really cool. We would like to see some of that. Show us some pictures in the, I don't know, the livestock section. Pfft. Come on. Look, my mom, and she knows for sure because she's watching the live. Usually, she knows that I am doing the live stream. And she sent me this. She says, "Doesn't this look like you watching your live stream right now?" Look at this. It says, 5 minutes in the corner is better than 5 years in prison. Discipline them now so the system doesn't have to later. Doesn't this look like... Thanks, Mom. But yeah, it actually does look like me as a kid. So that's... okay, thanks, Mom. Yeah, but that's her motherly advice. Discipline them now so that they don't have to spend 5 years in prison. But, you know, how many of us have done things that if we got caught, we'd be in prison for a long, long time? We just didn't get caught. So, yes, happy boar hunting, Lisa T. And Kermudge in AK says, a lot of the ways you talk about for growing is hard for us due to how remote we are. Need to find other ways than mulch or straw. How about leaves? How about deciduous leaves? Surely in the forest there's forests around you. If you're remote, go into the forest, rake in the leaf mulch. Even if it's pine leaf mulch, that's going to be just fine. So yeah, you totally can do that. So I guess you're in Arkansas somewhere, in Alaska probably. Yeah. So if you are remote, you need to find other ways than mulch or straw. So mulch can be anything. Mulch can be anything, really. So that is what I recommend. Go into the forest with a rake and a trash barrel or a tarp or a truck or something, and just gently rake the top surface of it. And you're in Alaska, so there's plenty of forest, you know. A lot of people, when I talk about, you know, go into the forest and gather some things, everyone, especially on Instagram, you know, everyone's expert. And so they, I would never recommend people mine our national forest for leaf mold. This is ridiculous. And they're all up on their high horse and stuff. And they're not understanding. Okay. In California, where there's like national parks and stuff, or in certain areas where the all of the wildlife and all the forest has just been totally decimated and developed, except for little national forest areas, little preserve areas, of course, then I'm not saying go into the national forest and destroy the redwood ancient ecosystem. But in the rest, in many parts of the U.S., there's just woods. There's still woods all over the place. Just random woods that are just woods all over the place. You know, and it's not sacred to these people. So, for example, there was a 700-acre woods that I grew up with at my dad's house that I grew up with behind the house. And since the time I was 8 years old, my dad got me a dirt bike, and I had a 22 rifle and stuff. And I grew up in those woods, back in the woods all the time, hunting, building camps, riding the dirt bikes and stuff. 700-acre woods. It was beautiful. And about 10 years ago, the whole thing got wiped out so they could put a factory there. So they could put because we got to put a road through development. The whole thing just wiped out. And now there's like 2 little strips of the old woods left, and that's it. And it's just develop. It's mind-blowing the way that, and the rest of it's just waiting to be developed, you know? So, that's what happens to most of the woods and stuff like that. So we're not getting too hung up about it. So the VA Green says, I have unlimited leaf mold. Yes, good. Ginny Grubb says, went to Catholic school. Easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Just saying. Absolutely. Well, and it's like most people, though. Most people are, when you hear someone got a DUI, oh, they got a DUI. Oh, yeah, they're not doing too well. Guys, how many of you, if you drive with even the slightest buzz going on, that's over the limit. 0.08 is almost nothing. I mean, if you have even the slightest little buzz, you're over the limit. So if you've ever driven with even the slightest buzz from alcohol, then that would have been a DUI. So don't act like you're all just so much superior than everyone. You just didn't get caught. That's the only thing. And it's true with so many things that people make judgments about. This I've learned from many years of being in the field. Nathaniel Graham says, Nate, what do you think growing ginger in straw bales instead of cocoa bags. I don't have a lot of experience growing in straw bales. I kind of do, but not, I just have never had the need to. So, what would be the advantage? I mean, if you have to grow in straw bales, okay, but it's not going to be a superior method. It's never going to be a superior method to growing in the ground or to growing in real soil. But if the alternative is cocoa bags, bags of cocoa coir, well, that's going to be like the straw, a soilless growing medium. So you're going to have to add lots of nutrients. Ginger is hungry, guys. I added what I thought was going to be a toxic amount of the Viking nutrients to the ginger grow bags, and it ate it all up. All it did was just grow super big, healthy, luscious leaves and big, thick, juicy rhizomes of ginger. I mean, juicy. And it was so tender I could eat it. Well, it's what I made the ginger, lemon, garlic, or honey stuff out of, among other things. But you could just eat it. It was so tender. It's not tough and fibrous. So straw bales are, most straw bales as well, if they're in contact with the earth. Like if you're growing tomatoes in straw bales that are in contact with the earth, the straw bale is really acting like a mulch / raised bed. The roots of the tomato are going to want to grow down into the nice, cool, nutrient-rich earth underneath. So the thing about techniques like straw bale gardening is you got to ask why. Why do I have to do that? Okay, Donald Hughes asked if he could grow sweet potatoes in topsoil since compost didn't work. Okay, topsoil. I would like to find that question, actually. Donald Hughes. Okay. Sweet potatoes won't grow in compost. Can I use bags of topsoil instead? Okay, Donald, thank you for the donation. I saw that on my PayPal. Thank you guys very much for that. And the answer, sweet potatoes won't grow in compost. Can I use bags of topsoil instead? Well, they will grow in compost. Compost can be very different to how rich it is. Compost will grow good sweet potatoes for the most part. Not pure compost, because that's going to be pretty rich. You could mix 50-50 topsoil and compost, or you could grow in pure topsoil sweet potatoes. Yeah. With just like a 10 or 20% compost even, because they do need nutrients, of course. But as far as bags of topsoil, yeah, I mean, you could. But I wouldn't, because you'd have to buy them, and that wouldn't make a lot of sense. So, yeah. JB says, how often do you update your Amazon store? Well, every time that I get something on Amazon or every time I see something or use something, I just put it in the store. So all the time. I'm finding, though, the Amazon storefront is not a very good interface. But it's not a very good, because the way it doesn't allow you to choose the pictures that represent what is there, and you have to have everything hidden in these playlists or whatever, these lists. And so I've got like 200 things in the storefront, but you go to the storefront and you just see like the 7 little categories, and they've just got some random picture in it. I don't like the setup, but we'll see, because I can't just keep putting thousands of links in the description. I already put so many in there. So the Amazon storefront, though, you just go to the thing that it says, like outdoor growing equipment, indoor growing equipment, cook like a Viking stuff. All that stuff is there. These will be like there, indoor growing equipment, definitely. Wild Bill says, how would a plant take up nutrients in straw? Seems kind of silly. Right, because straw is nearly pure carbon. And so that's why they have to be conditioned first. The breakdown process has to have begun, and you really need to be adding liquid nutrients to them. A lot of straw bale people are using Miracle Grow and stuff like that. Toxic garbage. But that's because the straw bale acts like a soilless growing medium. It acts like a rock wool cube, or it acts like, the nutrients aren't really coming from it. It's just a housing unit for the roots that they can then slather with the nutrient solution. Okay, Donald says, Nate, 100% compost got me pencil-sized sweet potatoes. Right, okay, so then yours is pretty rich. So yeah, you can grow it in topsoil. If you really want to do a sweet potato, and I might make a video on that, I might do this year, is you can make a long, narrow trench, a raised bed, 6 inches, 8 inches if you want, 2 feet wide, give or take, and however long you want. And then fill that with some topsoil, some leaf mold, even some sand if you've got it, stuff like that. And then we're going to plant the sweet potato slips into that, 2 by 2 by 2, like that. And that is, I think that would be really good. So if you've got access to a lot of topsoil, then yeah, just use topsoil then. A little bit of compost, but it will be better. But also make sure it's not other factors. Make sure that it's not lack of sunlight or lack of water. Make sure it's not these things, okay? JB says $10. Thank you very much, my friend. Once again, though, I can't see your question. It says, let's celebrate their first super live. All I can see, something says sowing. So I can't see the question, but thank you very much for the contribution, my friend. Reg O says, I agree on Amazon store comment. Yeah, I know. I was like really excited for it, but then it's like, wait, this isn't a very good interface. This isn't very good. It's not very easy to use. It's like not user friendly. Phoenix Rising says, my sweet potatoes were beautiful plants in topsoil raised bed, but the potatoes were puny. Yes. So guys, it can also go the other way though, that it can be not enough nutrients. If there's a truly nutrient poor soil, they do need nutrients. But the way that you can tell, that it was too rich is that the plants were nice and luscious, but the tubers were not. So I've had years where I planted and the vines only grew like 5 feet and they were kind of purplish. They kind of looked, they had major deficiencies. They weren't very healthy looking vines, but then I go to harvest it, bag full of potatoes, huge, thick, beautiful sweet potatoes that store for 2 years. So that's what they like. That's what they like. Drew Black says, does that go for regular potatoes as well? Yukon Gold, etc. No, not necessarily. No, because actually sweet potatoes and Irish potatoes, we'll call them regular, are not even remotely related. And so the sweet potatoes are in the morning glory family. And so they just share the same name. That's it. The Irish potato loves a good rich soil. So yes, manures, wood ash, Viking granular nutrients, combination of bone meal, blood meal, all that, 17 different things. That works out really well. Definitely. Yeah. Irish potatoes are hungry plants. So yes, they will like the nutrients. You will get better. The more nutrients they have, the more and bigger potatoes you will get. Up to a point, of course, but yes. That's exactly right. Lucas says, Nate says, don't let the vines touch the ground because the energy gets spread out to too many potatoes instead of getting less but bigger potatoes. Right. So that could be what some people are experiencing as well. If you just plant the sweet potatoes, let the vines grow out all over the ground, the vines will put down roots every foot or so, every couple feet, and they will begin to produce everywhere they put down roots, they will begin to produce tubers. Because for the survival of the plant, it actually doesn't need a big, huge, fat sweet potato. It only needs just a tiny little skinny thing, just enough to store solar energy for next year so that it can then sprout more slips and grow again. So that's why if you just plant sweet potatoes, you'll get tiny little potatoes. So the slips, if you keep them, that's why I grow mine in like bags or in a tub that's like 3 feet off the ground, so that then they spill out over that and I can trim them. But this year I didn't trim them because I was wanting to see what was going on. And they were like 20 feet long, some of them 25 feet long, the vines, and just pathetic harvest of potatoes, of sweet potatoes. Carol Vance says, I put cheese on my plate and put my stir-fry eggs and veggies I grew and eat it every morning. Love it. Thanks, Nate. Yes, sounds wonderful. Reg O says, we loved your black trash bag hack on potatoes. It worked well. Yes, good. Thank you. I'm glad it worked for you. Look to Nature says, I'm just happy I have your list on Amazon. No complaints here. Gotta wander around the Amazon store like a real store. Okay. That's not a bad way to look at it. You gotta kind of browse around like a real store. That's true in a way. But yeah, everything that I use in there, and guys, I have used stuff. I mean, I'm all about high quality stuff and not wasting money or energy on stuff that is garbage or that doesn't work or that you don't need, because I spent years in the field research with all of this. So that's how I know. So anything that I put in there is worthwhile. Like this, for example. I don't know what made me bring this. I was just looking for stuff to show you guys. But this thing, the Man Kitchen, this is specifically, well, kind of for cast iron. And this thing is nice. I mean, this is the best spatula I've ever had, for sure. This thing has got a nice sharp edge on it, beveled edge. Get up under it, scrape off the pan, no problem. I mean, this is the real deal. I love this thing. It's in the Amazon storefront. It's not cheap, but it's super high quality, and I use it all the time. And I absolutely love it. Yeah, so, and you can cut stuff with it even. So it's a Man Kitchen with 2 N's. Lisa T says, the Amazon storefront interface is clunky, so we give up and buy the item from our own page. Then they don't need to pay you that percentage. The more profit for them, more product. Man, that's unfortunate, but that makes sense. That's true. The storefront interface is so clunky that they will just find the item and get it from their own page. Yeah, that makes sense because they don't want to pay us. Stone Mason says, what's up, Nate? Winter finally found us in Indiana. Yeah, you ain't kidding, man. It's about to be cold the next couple weeks. But we're about to be in the sauna. And I'm going to be posting some shorts or something on my other channel, Thrive Like a Viking, of the sauna experience. Yes. This round of classes, there's a class every Monday and Thursday. This round of classes, the people are getting the real deal now. This is only the second session of the second set of classes. There's 3 sets of classes. And Monday was their first one, and Thursday was their first one. But now this is their second week of class, and it's going to be really cold. We're going to have to get a sledgehammer and bust that ice. Donald Hughes says, 30-foot vines and pencil-thin sweet potatoes. Everything else was best I ever had. Yes, that is because too rich of soil. That's why. Right. Phoenix Rising says, sweet potato leaves have great nutrients. That's true. I was sauteing them sweet potato leaves all summer because I was like, I'd never seen them like that. They look so appetizing. I'm telling you guys, these sweet potato leaves were like this big, rich, dark, green, and just, I would pick some and immediately a bunch more would grow. I mean, I couldn't pick enough, and so I was sauteing them. I would get a little bit of sesame oil or sesame oil because I like the particular flavor. So some cold pressed sesame oil from Japan, and we would heat that up in the wok with some garlic and a little bit of peppers, from like a Tabasco pepper or a Thai dynamite chili pepper. Got a couple of those plants. So some garlic, some of the chili, and then I would let that flavor the oil. I would fry that in the oil for about 2 minutes until they started to brown just a little bit. That infuses the oil with the flavor, the sesame oil, and then throw in all of the sweet potato leaves and just immediately flash stir fry. Not long because they'll get soggy. Just flash stir fry them in the wok, ultra high heat for like 2 minutes. That's it. Then bring it out, put it onto the plate, and drizzle a little bit of the apple cider vinegar or kombucha vinegar over it as well. And it was delicious. Yeah, with a little bit of tamari or Bragg's type of soy sauce. Yeah, so good. Oh, I was making that all the time. So Hamburger Hippie says, I put Epsom salt in my cold plunge. It doesn't have ice. Yes, but that's one thing that I was not sure of yet. Because I always put the sea salt in there. I don't know if Epsom salt has the same effect. I'm going to find out, though, because that would be way better. Because then I could dump the water into the garden and not worry about the salinity. So, let's see here. A few more things. Christopher Minnell says, Nate, why is there a noticeable bulge in the center of the stalk coming from my onion plant? Because the onion plant is going to try and set a flower. It's going to try and set flower. And so it kind of happens that way. Sometimes it can get stuck, though. It's really weird. Sometimes the flower stalk can just get stuck, or it aborts. And so it will get stuck in the middle of the stalk, and it'll be a normal stalk, and then bloop, big bulge, and then back to normal stalk. But that will typically grow into a flower stalk. Yes. Let us see. Sharon says, you are not kidding. I have ice on the inside of my door. Guys, yeah, all of my wind, it's not even cold yet. It's like 20 degrees, but the wind, so there's ice all up on, it's just crazy. I've had to nail blankets up on the door and the windows and stuff. It's going to be crazy next couple weeks. Let's see. Cecily says, potatoes in horse manure and weed tea in our sunlight does well. Have to water in summer. Plant all year round. Ooh, yeah. That's a really good way to do it. I mean, people were doing it that way for a long time. In those old farmers' almanacs I'm talking about, they'll dig a little trench, have the fire, and then put the potatoes, put some horse manure on top sometimes, and then fill back in, and just works really well. Yeah. Potatoes are hungry. Scott Miller says, so we should prune the potato leaves? We're talking about sweet potatoes, by the way, but no, you don't need to. Sweet potatoes, okay, yeah, you prune the vines. You keep the vines, ideally, sweet potato vines, you would keep to about 5 feet, give or take. Any more than that, and it's just wasting energy. And so you want to keep them pruned to about 5 feet, yes. But potato leaves, no, we never prune or cut potatoes. Yeah. So, okay, guys. We are finished with this week's live cast. Okay, so check us out Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time at the Thrive Like a Viking headquarters on that channel. We're going to talk about free-floating anxiety and why it is so important why it is so prevalent in the society right now, and why you're probably feeling it and you don't even realize. So we're going to talk about these things. Also, there's a link in the description to the traveling video that I just made, where well, just check it out. If you haven't checked it out already, you can check out the traveling channel. But when you click on the link, please be prepared to watch the 12-minute video, because that's important that you if you guys want to support the channel or any of my 3 channels, when you click on the link to the video, Let it play. You have to watch, because the watch time is all that matters on these. It doesn't matter the number of views. All that matters is how long the people watch it once they've clicked on it. So if you want to support this operation, both Travel Like a Viking, Thrive Like a Viking, Garden Like a Viking, then let the videos play all the way through. Even if you're not watching it, just let it play all the way through. Okay? And I will see you guys in the Discord chat. Share pictures of your stuff, definitely. And share knowledge and information with each other. And we will see you next time, my friends. Hello, Eclectic Cabin. You're late.